Annabelle. The demonic doll sits quietly behind glass, but her reputation follows her everywhere. The real Annabelle is not a porcelain figure with a cracked face. She is a simple Raggedy Ann doll from the 1970s, about 14 inches tall, with orange yarn hair, button eyes, and a stitched red smile. At first glance, she looks harmless. That contrast is exactly what made the case so disturbing to the people involved and to investigators who later studied it. The story begins in 1970 in Hartford, Connecticut. A nursing student named Donna Fasano received the doll as a birthday gift from her mother. Donna placed Annabelle on her bed in the apartment she shared with a roommate. Within weeks, strange things started happening. The doll appeared in different rooms without anyone moving it. Sometimes it was found standing upright. Other times it was cross-legged with its hands neatly folded. Notes also began to appear around the apartment, written on parchment paper that neither woman owned. The messages read, "Help us," and "Help Lou," in what looked like childish handwriting. The situation escalated when Donna's friend Lou reported being attacked. He claimed the doll appeared in his room, and moments later, he felt sharp pains across his chest. When the pain stopped, claw-like marks were visible on his skin. Shaken and afraid, Donna and her roommate contacted paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren in 1971. After investigating, the Warrens concluded that the doll itself was not possessed. Instead, they believed an inhuman demonic entity was manipulating it. According to their findings, the entity pretended to be the spirit of a deceased 7-year-old girl named Annabelle Higgins to gain sympathy and trust. This case became significant because of how thoroughly it was documented. The Warrens kept a detailed 43-page case file that included witness accounts, reports of sudden temperature drops, unexplained noises, and physical harm. What stood out most to them was the entity's behavior. They believed it showed intelligence and intent, focusing on young women and exploiting their nurturing instincts. The goal, they claimed, was not to inhabit the doll, but to gain permission to attach itself to a human host. Today, Annabelle is housed at the Warren Occult Museum in Monroe, Connecticut. The museum is no longer open for public tours following Lorraine Warren's death in 2019. But the doll remains secured inside. Annabelle sits in a custom-built glass case marked with warning signs and surrounded by blessed crucifixes. The case receives regular blessings from a Catholic priest, and security cameras monitor it at all times. When the museum was open, visitors were required to sign waivers acknowledging potential spiritual risks. Annabelle's influence extends far beyond the museum. She inspired multiple Hollywood films and remains one of the most recognized objects in paranormal history. In 2020, online rumors claimed she had escaped, causing widespread panic before the museum confirmed she was still secured. Psychologists and cultural researchers now study the case as an example of how familiar childhood objects can trigger fear, anxiety, and belief. Whether viewed as a paranormal threat or a powerful symbol, Annabelle continues to raise questions about trust, suggestion, and how easily innocence can feel unsettling when something seems off. Robert the Doll. Robert the Doll stands frozen behind glass, yet few museum objects feel as watched as he does. He is about 40 inches tall and dressed in his original white sailor suit, complete with a matching cap. His face is made of fabric, worn thin by time, with button eyes, and an expression many visitors describe as uneasy. Robert's hair appears human, not synthetic, and his right hand grips a small stuffed lion named Leo. His left arm hangs at an odd angle, the result of more than a century of handling and reported movement. Created around 1906, Robert is one of the oldest haunted objects still on public display in the United States. Robert originally belonged to Robert Eugene Otto, the son of a wealthy family in Key West, Florida. According to family stories, the doll was given to Gene by a Bahamian servant who worked in the household. Some legends claim the servant practiced folk magic and created the doll after being mistreated, though historians note these claims reflect common fears of the era. As a child, Gene treated Robert as a companion, not a toy. His parents reported hearing their son talking in his bedroom, followed by a deeper voice answering back. Gene insisted that Robert spoke to him, and that Robert was responsible whenever something went wrong in the house. Strange events followed the Otto family for years. Furniture moved without explanation. Toys were found broken. Neighbors claimed they saw the doll shift from window to window, while the family was away. Police records from later decades describe repeated calls reporting intruders at the Otto home, yet officers found no forced entry. Each time, Robert was discovered sitting in a new position. Even after Jean grew up, he kept the doll close. Robert remained with him until his death in 1974. After Jean's passing, the house changed owners, but the reports did not stop. New residents claimed to hear footsteps, laughter, and objects moving. The doll was blamed again. In 1994, Robert was donated to the Fort East Martello Museum in Key West. Just months later, the donor, Myrtle Reuter, died unexpectedly, adding another layer to the legend. Since then, Robert has remained in the museum's care. What makes Robert especially unusual is the behavior attributed to him today. Visitors are warned to ask permission before taking photographs. Those who ignore the rule often report camera failures, sudden accidents, or extended streaks of bad luck. Many later send apology letters to the museum, asking Robert for forgiveness. Hundreds arrive each year from around the world, some handwritten, others typed, all describing misfortune that only ended after saying sorry. Robert is now the centerpiece of the Fort East Martello Museum. He sits in a climate-controlled case on the second floor, watched closely by staff and visitors alike. A dedicated curator oversees his display, which has become a major attraction for Key West, generating significant tourism revenue. In modern discussions, Robert represents more than a ghost story. Researchers study him to understand belief, suggestion, and fear. Anthropologists also examine how his origin story reflects racial stereotypes tied to Bahamian spiritual practices. Over time, Robert has become a mirror, reflecting how culture, guilt, and expectation can transform a simple doll into a lasting symbol of the unexplained. The Hope Diamond. The Hope Diamond rests under bright lights at the Smithsonian, yet its story is far darker than its shine suggests. The gem weighs 45.52 carats and is a deep, smoky blue, roughly the size of a walnut. It sits in a necklace surrounded by 16 white diamonds, drawing the eye immediately. When exposed to ultraviolet light, the stone glows red, a rare effect caused by trace amounts of boron trapped inside its crystal structure. Valued at hundreds of millions of dollars, the Hope Diamond is admired for its beauty and feared for its reputation. The diamond's history stretches back centuries and crosses continents. Its earliest known form was part of a much larger stone called a French blue, weighing 112 carats. That gem was taken from India in the 17th century, where it was reportedly linked to a sacred statue. In 1666, a French merchant named Jean-Baptiste Tavernier brought the stone to Europe. Later stories claim his life ended violently, helping fuel the legend of a curse. The French blue eventually became part of the French crown jewels, and was owned by King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette before their executions during the French Revolution. In 1792, the French crown jewels were stolen, and the French blue vanished. 20 years later, in 1812, a smaller blue diamond appeared in London, recut to hide its identity. By 1839, it was owned by banker Henry Philip Hope, whose name the diamond still carries. Over time, stories of misfortune followed it. Members of the Hope family faced financial trouble. Other owners reported sudden deaths, failed marriages, and lost fortunes. These tales grew with each retelling, turning the gem into a symbol of wealth with a cost. The idea of a curse gained even more attention in the early 20th century. Jeweler Pierre Cartier actively promoted the dark stories in 1910 while trying to sell the diamond, understanding that fear could increase its appeal. In 1911, it was purchased by American heiress Evelyn Walsh McLean. During her ownership, tragedy struck her family. Her young son died in a car accident, and years later her daughter died by suicide. While historians debate whether these events were truly linked to the diamond, the pattern reinforced its reputation. Since 1958, the Hope Diamond has been housed at the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C. It is displayed in a secure, bulletproof case and protected by advanced security systems. More than 6 million visitors see it each year, making it the museum's most popular permanent exhibit. Today, it is studied as much for its geology as its legend. Scientists use it to explain how rare blue diamonds form deep within the earth over billions of years. In the modern world, the Hope Diamond raises larger questions about value, ownership, and belief. Economists study its curse as an example of how people fear loss more than they desire gain. Scholars also point to its origins as part of a history of colonial extraction. From sacred object to stolen treasure to museum display, the Hope Diamond reflects how stories shape the way we justify possessing beauty that came at a heavy price. Ötzi the Iceman. Ötzi the Iceman lies silently behind glass, yet his presence feels anything but distant. He is the naturally preserved body of a man who died more than 5,300 years ago, frozen in Alpine ice until modern hikers stumbled upon him. At the time of his death, Ötzi stood about 5'5" and weighed roughly 110 pounds. His skin still shows 61 carbon tattoos, his body still holds traces of ancient blood, and the tools found with him include a copper axe that changed what historians knew about early European technology. Ötzi was discovered on September 19, 1991, high in the Ötztal Alps along the border between Austria and Italy. German tourists Helmut and Erika Simon believed they had found the remains of a recent climber. It took days for experts to realize the truth. Radiocarbon dating later revealed that Ötzi died around 3,300 BC, during the Copper Age. That makes him older than Stonehenge and even the Egyptian pyramids. His body had remained sealed in ice, protected from decay for thousands of years. Modern scans uncovered the story of his final hours. Ötzi died violently after being struck by an arrow that pierced his left shoulder blade and severed a major artery. He likely bled to death where he fell. Analysis of his stomach contents showed that he ate red deer meat, grains, and ibex fat just 2 hours before dying. Genetic testing revealed personal details no one expected to learn from such an ancient body. He had brown eyes, was lactose intolerant, and suffered from arthritis and heart disease. Soon after his discovery, stories of a curse began to spread. Within a decade, several people connected to Ötzi's recovery and study died under unusual circumstances. Helmut Simon, who found the body, died during a sudden snowstorm in 2004. The forensic pathologist who first examined Ötzi died in a car crash while traveling to speak about him. A mountain guide involved in the recovery was killed in an avalanche. Other figures linked to the case died from illness or accidents. Scientists argue these deaths are coincidences, but the pattern has kept public fascination alive. Today, Ötzi is housed at the South Tyrol Museum of Archaeology in Bolzano, Italy. He is kept inside a specially designed chamber that maintains nearly perfect humidity and a constant temperature below freezing. Visitors can only view him through a small window, and only for a limited time. These strict conditions protect his fragile remains from light, heat, and bacteria. The museum tightly controls access, balancing preservation with public interest. Ötzi remains one of the most valuable scientific discoveries ever made. Researchers study his organs, blood vessels, and even brain tissue to understand ancient disease and human health. Climate scientists also examine the glacier that preserved him, using it as evidence of long-term climate patterns and modern warming. At the same time, his story raises ethical questions about displaying human remains. Ötzi offers unmatched knowledge from the distant past, while quietly reminding us that uncovering history can come with consequences we may never fully understand. Busby's stoop chair. Busby's stoop chair looks like an ordinary piece of wooden furniture, yet few objects carry a darker reputation. The chair is made of oak, with a high back and carved armrests worn smooth by years of use. Its design reflects simple English craftsmanship from the early 18th century. There is nothing sharp or broken about it. Still, today it hangs 5 feet off the ground at Thirsk Museum, suspended high on the wall, so no one can sit in it by accident. The chair once belonged to Thomas Busby, a counterfeiter who lived in North Yorkshire. Busby was known to spend much of his time at the Busby Stoop and near the town of Thirsk, where this chair was said to be his favorite seat. In 1702, Busby murdered his father-in-law, Daniel Oddie, after a long-running dispute over Busby's violent treatment of his wife. He was arrested, tried, and sentenced to death. According to local legend, Busby was dragged from the inn after his final meal and taken to a gibbet erected at a nearby crossroads. As he left, he allegedly placed a curse on the chair, declaring that death would come quickly to anyone who dared sit in it. Busby was hanged, and his body was left suspended in chains for years as a warning to others. The site became so well known that the inn itself took the name Busby Stoop, with stoop referring to the hanging post. Over time, stories began to circulate about the chair. Travelers who sat in it were said to fall ill, suffer accidents, or die shortly afterward. In records and local accounts from the 18th and 19th centuries describe dozens of such cases, though many details remain difficult to verify. The chair's reputation grew during the 20th century. During World War II, Royal Air Force airmen stationed nearby reportedly dared each other to sit in it before missions. Several later died in combat, reinforcing the legend. One of the most cited incidents occurred in 1967, when 2 RAF pilots sat in the chair and were killed later that same day in a car crash. Whether coincidence or not, the pattern was enough to frighten even committed skeptics. Eventually, the chair was removed from the inn's public seating area to prevent further incidents. In 1972, the chair was donated to Thirsk Museum. The landlord, tired of the risk and attention, chose to give it away rather than destroy an object that had become part of local history. Museum staff mounted it high on the wall, where it remains today. Since then, no deaths have been linked to it, though visitors still approach with caution. Many stop and stare. Few linger too long beneath it. In the modern era, Busby's Stoop chair is studied as much for belief as for history. Psychologists point to it as an example of how expectation can shape experience. When people believe an object is dangerous, they are more likely to connect unrelated tragedies to it. The chair also reflects deep fears about punishment, crime, and social order in rural England. Today, as stories spread quickly online, Busby's chair shows how old legends survive by adapting, continuing to unsettle new generations without anyone ever needing to take a seat. Sedlec Ossuary. The Sedlec Ossuary sits beneath a small Gothic church, yet nothing prepares visitors for what lies inside. This chapel is decorated entirely with human bones. Skulls line the walls. Femurs form arches and garlands. A massive chandelier hangs from the ceiling, built using at least one of every bone in the human body. In total, the remains of 40,000 to 70,000 people shape the space, turning death itself into architecture. The story begins in 1278, when Abbot Henry of Sedlec returned from Jerusalem with soil taken from Golgotha, the site of Jesus' crucifixion. He spread the soil across the local cemetery, instantly making it holy ground. People from across Europe requested burial there, believing it would bring spiritual favor. Centuries later, tragedy followed devotion. The Black Death swept through the region in the 14th century, killing thousands. Soon after, the Hussite Wars added even more dead. The cemetery filled beyond capacity, leaving no room for new graves. In 1511, a half-blind monk was tasked with solving the problem. He began exhuming older remains and stacking the bones inside the chapel beneath the church. At first, the bones were placed in simple piles. Over time, the space filled wall to wall with human remains. The ossuary stayed this way for centuries, quiet and crowded, until the late 19th century brought a dramatic change. In 1870, the Schwarzenberg family hired woodcarver František Rent to organize the bones. Instead of hiding them, he arranged them into deliberate artistic forms. Rent cleaned and whitened each bone, then created elaborate displays. He built the famous chandelier, sculpted pyramids of skulls, and formed the Schwarzenberg family coat of arms entirely from human remains. Even his own signature appears on the wall, spelled out in bone. The Sedlec Ossuary is significant because it transforms mass death into reflection rather than fear. Unlike places associated with curses or violence, this chapel encourages contemplation. Many visitors describe strong emotional reactions. Some feel calm and reflective. Others feel uneasy or overwhelmed. Standing among thousands of bones forces people to face mortality directly, without distance or decoration. It challenges modern habits of hiding death behind closed doors and polished rituals. Today, the ossuary is located in Kutna Hora, Czech Republic, beneath the Cemetery Church of All Saints. It is maintained by national heritage authorities and functions as both a tourist site and an active Roman Catholic church. More than 200,000 people visit each year. Major restoration work completed in 2012 helped preserve the fragile bone arrangements while improving access. Religious services are still held inside, continuing its sacred purpose. In the modern world, the Sedlec Ossuary remains deeply relevant. Anthropologists view it as a powerful example of memento mori, reminders meant to keep life in perspective. Artists and therapists study how confronting death through beauty can help people process grief. Environmental thinkers also reference it when discussing sustainable burial practices. The ossuary shows that even in death, meaning can be shaped. By honoring the dead openly, it offers a quiet lesson about dignity, memory, and the shared fate that connects every human life. And that wraps up today's journey through haunted objects in museums. From eerie relics to cursed items museums dare to display. These top haunted museum artifacts remind us that history isn't always silent, and some stories refuse to rest. Whether you're fascinated or terrified by the scariest haunted museum items, there's always more lurking behind the glass. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Museum Minutes for more chilling tales, mysterious artifacts, and dark history you won't find in textbooks.